Hey there. Tonight, we're stepping back, way back, to a time when the very air before battle held a weight you could almost touch. Picture this. You're standing in a column of 10,000 men, and the only sounds are the crunch of sandals on frozen earth and the distant caw of ravens circling overhead, waiting. Welcome to another journey through the forgotten corners of history. The parts they never taught you in school. The uncomfortable truths that made your ancestors' lives brutally short and painfully real. I'm thrilled you're here. If you're new, welcome. If you're returning, thank you. Tonight's story runs deep, so grab your blankets, dim those lights, and let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. We're traveling to ancient Europe, around 100 BCE, when Roman legions perfected something terrifying: the silent march into battle. Not the heroic charges you see in movies, not the war cries and dramatic speeches. Number. Just silence. The kind of silence that makes your enemy's blood run cold, that breaks morale before a single sword is drawn. You won't be a general tonight. You won't be a hero. You'll be Marcus, a 17-year-old farm boy who signed up because the harvest failed, and the legion promised 3 meals a day. You're about to learn why silence was Rome's deadliest weapon, and why surviving your first campaign was far from guaranteed. So, dim the lights, get comfortable, and let's march together into the suffocating quiet of ancient warfare. You are Marcus, 17 summers old, standing in a line of nervous young men outside the recruitment station in Capua. The year is 101 BCE, and the harvest back home in your village failed for the 3rd consecutive year. Your father, once a proud farmer, now hunches over his plough with the weight of unpayable debts. Your younger sisters need dowries. Your mother's cough has worsened through the winter. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. The Legion offers steady pay, grain rations, and the promise of land after 25 years of service. The recruitment officer, a scarred veteran named Centurion Vorenus, paces before you with the casual authority of a man who's killed more people than you've met in your entire life. His armor is dented, functional, bearing none of the polish you'd imagined. He looks at each recruit, not with inspiration or patriotism, but with the cold assessment of a butcher examining livestock. You're tall enough, just barely. You have most of your teeth. Your hands show calluses from farm work. You'll do. Can you march 20 miles carrying 60 pounds? Vorenus asks you directly. You nod, lying. You've never carried more than a sack of grain, maybe 30 pounds, for a mile at most. Can you kill a man when he's begging for his mother? You hesitate. Vorenus smirks. You'll learn, boy. You'll all learn, or you'll die learning. Either way, Rome wins. You make your mark on the tablet, an X, since you cannot write your name. And just like that, you belong to Rome. Your life is no longer your own. The first 3 days of Legion life shatter every romantic notion you'd harbored about military service. You're herded with 40 other recruits into a barracks that smells of old sweat, mildew, and the acrid tang of the communal latrine located too close for comfort. Sleep comes poorly on a thin straw mattress shared with another recruit, a baker's son from Pompeii named Lucius, who snores like a dying ox and kicks in his sleep. Dawn arrives not with gentle light, but with Vorenus and 2 other centurions banging their vine staffs against bronze shields, creating a thunderous clangor that sends you stumbling from your bed in confusion. You have the count of 100 to relieve yourselves, drink, and form up in the yard, Vorenus bellows. Anyone late runs 5 miles with full pack. Move! The chaos is immediate. 40 young men, most having never lived communally, fight for the 12 spots at the latrine, the single water trough, the narrow doorway. You learn quickly that politeness gets you nowhere. You must elbow, shove, and claim your space or be left behind. You finish with your bladder still partially full, but make it to the yard with perhaps 10 counts to spare. What follows is your introduction to military discipline. For 6 hours straight, you practice a single movement. Standing at attention, simply standing still, feet together, eyes forward, hands at sides. It sounds laughable until the first hour passes and your legs begin to tremble. By hour 3, 2 recruits have fainted from locking their knees. By hour 6, you understand this is a test of will, not strength. Those who cannot stand still cannot hold a battle line. Week 2 introduces you to the instruments that will either keep you alive or fail you when it matters most: your equipment. Each recruit receives his kit in a ceremony devoid of pageantry. A quartermaster with ink-stained fingers records your name in a ledger, then dumps before you the tools of Roman warfare. A gladius, short sword. A scutum, rectangular shield. A pilum, javelin. A pugio, dagger. Armor, helmet. And the hated sarcina, the marching pack that will become an extension of your spine. The gladius feels wrong in your hand. You'd expected something noble, but it's a brutal, workmanlike tool. Barely 2 feet long, designed not for elegant dueling, but for the cramped, ugly work of shield wall combat. The balance point sits near the hilt, making it responsive, but requiring strength to maintain control. Centurion Varenus demonstrates proper grip. Never squeeze, let it rest in your palm. Control with fingers, not force. This blade doesn't slash like a Celtic longsword, running his thumb along the edge, he explains. It stabs. Short, efficient thrusts between ribs, into the throat, under the shield rim. 3 inches of steel in the right place ends a man, faster than all the wild swinging in the world. Your scutum proves even more challenging. At 4 feet tall and 22 pounds, the curved wooden shield with its iron boss feels impossibly heavy and unwieldy. Your arm screams after holding it at the ready position for mere minutes. You'll build the strength, Varenus promises without sympathy, or you'll die with that arm too weak to protect your skull. Rome doesn't care which. Your body revolts against the training regimen. Every morning begins the same. 5 miles running in full armor, the chainmail bouncing against your shoulders with each footfall, opening raw patches of skin that weep clear fluid and sting with every movement. Your legs, strong from farm work, discover new forms of agony as military pace differs fundamentally from agricultural labor. Farming offers rest between tasks, moments to catch breath while moving from field to barn. The legion permits no such mercy. Lucius vomits during the 2nd mile every single morning for 12 days straight. You learn to position yourself slightly ahead and to his left to avoid the spray. Other recruits drop out of formation, unable to maintain pace, and are forced to repeat the run carrying stones in addition to their equipment. You see one boy, barely 16, run the 5 miles 4 times in a single day, each time slower, until finally he simply lies down and refuses to rise. They drag him to the medicus tent. You never see him again. The afternoon brings weapons drill. For hours you stab a wooden post, the palace, with your gladius, practicing the same thrust over and over and over. Shoulder height, between the ribs, withdraw immediately, step back, shield up. Varenus chants like a priest reciting liturgy. Thrust, withdraw, shield, step. Thrust, withdraw, shield, step. Your arm develops a tremor from the repetition. Splinters from the wooden post embed in your hands. The simple motion becomes everything. There is only the thrust, the withdrawal, the shield, the step. Your world narrows to this 4-beat rhythm. By evening, You're too exhausted to eat more than a few bites of the barley porridge that constitutes the legionary diet. You collapse onto your straw mattress, and Lucius's snoring doesn't bother you anymore, because you're unconscious before your head settles. 6 weeks into training, Centurion Vorenus introduces the concept that will define your military existence. Silence. Sound carries, he begins, and the way he says it makes clear this isn't theoretical instruction, but survival knowledge purchased with blood. On still mornings, voices travel 2 miles. The jingle of equipment, 300 paces. The scrape of thousands of sandals on stone, even farther. Noise announces your position, your numbers, your intentions. Noise gives the enemy time to prepare, to flee, to set ambushes. Silence is tactical superiority. The lesson starts simply, marching without speaking. This proves harder than imagined. Young men accustomed to conversation, to jokes and complaints and the basic social lubricant of speech, find the prohibition unnatural. Someone always whispers something, and everyone must repeat the drill. Then comes marching without equipment noise, learning to bind every piece of metal, to wrap the chainmail joints in cloth, to pad the shield's interior brackets, to walk in a manner that minimizes the crunch of gravel beneath sandals. You spend an entire day learning to walk differently. Not the heel-toe stride of normal movement, but a rolling step that distributes weight more evenly, that finds firm ground before committing, that produces minimal sound. It feels absurd, theatrical, like you're pretending to be stealthy rather than actually achieving it. Then Vorenus has you close your eyes, while a century of trained legionaries marches past at 100 paces. You hear almost nothing. A whisper of disturbed air, the faintest suggestion of movement, but nothing that would register as a threat until far too late. We're not trying to be invisible, Vorenus explains. We're creating uncertainty. The enemy hears something but can't gauge distance, can't count numbers, can't identify the source. Uncertainty breeds fear. Fear breaks formations before we arrive. The psychological dimension of silent warfare emerges during night exercises. Vorenus divides the recruits into 2 groups, attackers and defenders. The defenders set up camp with fires, normal conversation, the comfortable sounds of men at rest. You're assigned to the attacking force. Your mission: approach within 50 paces of the enemy camp without detection. The night is moonless, cloud-covered, so dark you can barely see Lucius standing beside you. Vorenus gives a single hand signal, advance, and your sentry begins moving through the darkness. The fear is immediate and primal. You cannot see the ground, cannot identify obstacles, must rely entirely on your trained, silent walking technique to avoid making noise. Each step becomes an eternity of uncertainty. Will your sandal land on a twig? Will you stumble into another soldier? Will your equipment betray you? It takes nearly 2 hours to cover 400 paces. The pace is agonizingly slow, each soldier feeling forward with his leading foot before committing weight. The sentry moving as one trembling, hesitant organism through absolute darkness. You can hear the defending camp clearly now. Their laughter, their stories, the crackle of their fires. They sound so confident, so unaware. The disparity creates a strange emotional cocktail. You feel powerful because you're invisible, but also terrified because you're blind. At 50 paces, Vorenus signals the halt. You've achieved it. 100 men standing in complete darkness, armed and armored, within javelin range of an enemy who has no idea you exist. Then Vorenus lights a torch. The defenders scramble, panic visible in their movements, grabbing for weapons, shouting questions. They'd heard nothing. You were ghosts until you chose to become real. The lesson sinks deeper than any speech could achieve. Silence isn't just tactical. It's psychological warfare at its most fundamental. Training concludes after 3 brutal months. Of the 40 recruits who began with you, 32 remain. 3 failed physically, unable to maintain the pace, the strength, the endurance demanded. 5 were dismissed for disciplinary failures, fighting, theft, inability to follow orders. You never learned what happened to them. They simply disappeared from morning formation, their equipment redistributed, their names struck from the rolls as though they'd never existed. The final examination bears no ceremony. Verena simply announces one morning that today you join your legion, the 10th, currently camped 30 miles north, preparing for spring campaign season. You'll march there in full equipment, in complete silence, arriving ready for immediate deployment. This is not practice. This is your first operational movement as a legionary of Rome. The weight settles on your shoulders, literal and metaphorical. Your full kit, the sarkina, weighs roughly 60 pounds. Armor, weapons, entrenching tools, cooking equipment, 3 days' rations, spare clothing, personal items. The load distributes across your frame in ways the quartermaster carefully designed. But design cannot eliminate the fundamental reality that you're carrying a third of your body weight for 30 miles. The march begins in darkness, 2 hours before dawn. Your century forms up silently, each man finding his position through muscle memory rather than sight. No commands are given vocally. Verena simply begins walking, and the century flows into movement behind him, like water following gravity. The silence feels different now. During training, it was imposed, artificial, something you performed. Now it's operational, purposeful. The silence of men moving toward violence. Your feet find the rolling walk without conscious thought. The equipment sits balanced on your frame. The gladius rests against your hip, comforting and terrible. You are no longer a farmer's son. You are a legionary of Rome. The 30-mile march to Legion Camp reveals the difference between training exercises and operational reality. During training, you marched 5 miles, maybe 10 on ambitious days, always returning to barracks, meals, medical care. This march offers no such comfort. You walk until Varenus decides to stop. You rest when permitted. You eat what you carry. The road itself becomes your entire world. Around mile 15, your feet begin their rebellion. The military sandals, carefully fitted, have nonetheless created pressure points that now bloom into blisters. You feel them forming, small pockets of fluid between skin layers, each step inflating them further. The pain is sharp, specific, demanding attention. But the century doesn't stop for blisters. Veterans around you march on worse injuries, old wounds improperly healed, chronic joint problems, feet so scarred they resemble battlefield terrain. You learn to compartmentalize the pain, to acknowledge it exists while refusing to let it control your pace. Mile 20 brings different challenges. Your shoulders scream under the pack weight. The armor straps have rubbed raw the skin beneath, and you can feel wetness that's probably blood mixing with sweat. Your water is nearly gone. You drank too much too early, failing to ration properly. The veterans carry twice the distance on half the water because they've learned the discipline. Lucius, beside you, shows similar struggles, but maintains pace through what appears to be pure stubbornness. The century maintains absolute silence throughout. No complaints, no encouragement, no conversation. Just the rhythm of thousands of footfalls creating a soft percussion, the occasional creak of leather, the whisper of equipment settling against bodies. You begin to understand why silence training mattered. It creates a meditative state, a dissolution of individual identity into collective purpose. The pain doesn't disappear, but it becomes less personal, less important.
You reach the Legion camp as afternoon shadows lengthen. The fortress that emerges from the landscape makes your breath catch despite exhaustion. This isn't a temporary encampment, but a full legionary fortress. Walls of packed earth faced with stone, watchtowers at intervals, gates that could withstand siege engines. 5,000 men live and train within these walls, and they've carved their presence into the Italian countryside like a scar. The guards at the Porta Praetoria, the main gate, examine Varenus's orders with bored efficiency. They've seen countless recruits arrive, and your century's bedraggled state offers nothing novel. You march through into organized chaos. Thousands of men move with purpose through the camp's grid of streets, each century occupying its designated section. Workshops hammering out repairs, smiths maintaining weapons. The whole apparatus of Roman military power conducting its daily business. Your century is assigned to the third cohort, Barrack Block 7. The building looks identical to your training facility, except larger, housing a full century of 80 men rather than 40 recruits. The men already occupying the barracks regard you with the contempt veterans reserve for untested replacements. You're taking bunks that belong to men who died, deserted, or mustered out. Ghosts whose equipment still bears their sweat stains. A grizzled legionary named Sextus, perhaps 40 years old, with more scars than teeth, makes the hierarchy clear. You're tent mates now, 8 men to a contubernium. In camp, you bunk together. On march, you share one tent. In battle, you hold your section of line together or you die together. I don't care if you like each other. You'll function as one unit, or Varenus will make you wish you'd never been born. The concept is clear. The Legion replaces your family. These 7 strangers become your brothers through doctrine rather than blood. Your contubernium, tent unit, consists of 8 men, and the introductions are perfunctory. Besides you, Lucius, and Sextus, there's Quintus the Gaul, tall and blonde with tribal tattoos on his arms, granted Roman citizenship through military service. There's Titus and Decimus, brothers from Apulia who finish each other's sentences. There's Rufus, a red-headed giant from Britannia who speaks Latin with a thick accent. And there's Marcellus, a wiry Sicilian with quick hands and quicker temper. The social dynamics establish themselves within hours. Sextus commands through experience. He's served 20 years, campaigned in Hispania, Gaul and Germania. Survived wounds that should have killed him. When he speaks, everyone listens. Quintus serves as second, his size and calm demeanor providing balance to Sextus's aggression. The brothers form their own subunit, communicating in shorthand outsiders can't penetrate. Rufus provides muscle and surprising gentleness. Marcellus tests boundaries constantly, looking for weakness to exploit or respect to earn. You and Lucius occupy the bottom tier, new, untested, suspect. Every contubernium loses members to battle, disease, or accident, and replacements must prove they won't get their tent mates killed through incompetence. The veterans make clear, you're on trial. Evening mess provides your first taste of campaign standard food. The barley porridge tastes identical to training rations, but the portions are larger, supplemented with hard cheese, onions, and luxury, actual wine rather than vinegar water. Sextus explains the economics. Legion feeds you better than training because they need you functional. Still, it's barley, not wheat. Wheat's for citizens. You'll eat like a citizen when you've earned citizenship status, and that takes years. The implication lands heavy. You're not quite Roman yet. You're property, investment, tool. Earn your place or be discarded. Your first week in the Legion camp operates on a rhythm different from training. The physical demands remain brutal: morning runs, weapons drill, formation practice, but now serve maintenance rather than instruction. You're not learning anymore, you're preventing skill degradation. The Legion keeps its soldiers sharp through relentless repetition, muscle memory carved so deep that exhaustion or terror cannot erase it. The true education happens in the margins, the unscheduled hours when veterans impart lessons you won't find in any drill manual. Sextus gathers the contubernum after evening mess and speaks truths that make your previous understanding seem childish. Training taught you how to fight, he begins, tone serious. Now you learn how to survive. Fighting's the easy part. It's quick, decided. Surviving campaign season means managing 1,000 details that will kill you faster than any enemy. He catalogues the dangers. Contaminated water that empties your bowels until you're too weak to stand. Infected wounds from scratches you thought trivial. Frostbite during night watches. Heat stroke during forced marches. Equipment failure at critical moments. Disease that sweeps through camps killing more men than battles. Last campaign in Germania, Sextus continues. We lost 60 men to combat. We lost 200 to dysentery, pneumonia, and infected blisters. The Germans didn't beat us. Our own bodies did. He teaches you to recognize bad water by smell and appearance, how to treat minor wounds before they fester, how to wrap feet to prevent blisters, how to ration food so you maintain strength throughout a campaign, where to sleep in a tent to avoid the worst of the cold and wet, how to trade with camp followers for necessities, which officers to avoid, which fights to walk away from. The accumulated wisdom of 2 decades bought with suffering. You realize military competence has layers you never imagined, not with glory but with logistics. Each contubernum receives assignments for the march, what equipment to carry communally, how to pack the mule that will bear your tent and heavy tools, what personal items are permitted, and what must be left behind. The weight restrictions are absolute. 60 pounds per man, no exceptions. Every ounce must justify its inclusion. You lay out your possessions for inventory. The required equipment, armor, weapons, tools, rations, consumes most of your allowance. What remains for personal items amounts to perhaps £2. You have letters from your mother, carefully preserved. A spare tunic, the clay amulet, a small knife your father gave you before you left, an extra pair of sandals. Together they exceed your allowance by £0.50. Sextus reviews your kit with merciless efficiency. Letters stay. The amulet stays if you wear it, not if you pack it. 1 tunic is sufficient. You'll wear it until it rots and get another from the quartermaster. Father's knife goes unless it's functional for camp tasks. Extra sandals stay. Repair the ones you have. This isn't sentiment hour, boy. Every extra ounce means slower march speed, faster exhaustion, decreased combat readiness. You choose the amulet and your father's knife, abandoning everything else. The letters hurt most. Your mother's cramped, barely literate script describing village life, asking if you're eating enough, promising prayers to Mars for your safety. You reread them once final time, committing phrases to memory, then leave them in your trunk. They'll wait here, in storage, maybe forever, if you don't return. The Legion moves light. Lucius agonizes over similar choices, ultimately selecting a small wooden carving his little sister made. A crude horse, barely recognizable as such, but precious beyond measure. The Legion departs before dawn on a cool April morning.
5,000 men, 500 cavalry, 2,000 camp followers, hundreds of mules and wagons, an entire mobile city flowing north along the Via Flaminia. The scale overwhelms understanding. You've never seen so many people moving with single purpose, never imagined such organization was possible. Yet it functions with supernatural efficiency, each century finding its designated position in the march column, cavalry screening flanks, supply wagons protected in the center, scouts ranging ahead. Your contubernarium marches in the third cohort, middle of the column. This placement is intentional, Sextus explains as you walk. Newest troops go to the center, where they're protected by veterans front and rear, where they can observe proper march discipline, where their inevitable mistakes won't compromise the legion's security. You'll earn flanking positions, he says, by not dying stupidly in your first year. The march pace surprises you. During training, you pushed hard, covering ground quickly. The legion moves slower, more deliberately, at a sustainable rhythm designed for 20-mile days, sustained for weeks. Varenus, marching with your century, sets the pace. Not fast enough to exhaust, not slow enough to waste daylight. The silence protocol is total. 5,000 men march in near complete quiet. The only sounds the percussion of feet and equipment, the creak of wagons, the occasional called signal from officers. By midday you understand why silence matters operationally. The march column extends for miles. If communication required voice, orders would never reach from vanguard to rearguard. Instead, signals pass visually. Flags, hand gestures, standardized responses that flow through the column like ripples in water. You halt when the man ahead halts. You turn when he turns. The column moves as one organism with 5,000 limbs. The Legion's first night camp demonstrates Roman military engineering at its terrifying peak. You arrive at the designated site in late afternoon, an unremarkable stretch of flat ground beside a stream. Within 4 hours, 5,000 men construct a fortified city from nothing. The process unfolds with assembly line precision that makes training exercises seem quaint. Each contubernarium has assigned tasks. Yours draws perimeter duty. You dig defensive ditches. Sextus distributes the work. You and Lucius handle the initial excavation. Quintus and Rufus deepen it. The brothers shape the slope. Marcellus processes the removed earth into rampart material. The ditch must be 6 feet wide and 4 feet deep. The earth piled into a rampart behind it. Sharpened stakes driven into the slope. Your section of perimeter is 80 feet long. You dig. The ground, softened by spring rains, yields easily at first. But 4 feet down you hit clay that fights every thrust of the entrenching spade. Your shoulders, already aching from the march, burn with new agony. Blisters form on your palms where the wooden handle rubs. Lucius works beside you, both of you establishing rhythm. Dig, lift, throw, repeat. Dig, lift, throw, repeat. The motion becomes meditation, blocking out pain and fatigue through sheer repetition. Around you, the camp rises. Teams erect the commander's tent first, a massive leather structure that will house the legion's leadership. Then the Principia, the headquarters. Then the streets, laid out in perfect grid. Then the barracks tents, each positioned precisely, creating instant city infrastructure. By the time you finish your ditch section, exhausted and filthy, a complete fortification surrounds you. Walls, gates, watchtowers, defensive positions. 4 hours, from empty field to fortress.
Sextus surveys your work critically, finds it acceptable, and you collapse onto the ground. Too tired to move.
Your contubernium's tent becomes your home for the night. 8 men sharing a leather structure barely 10 feet square. The interior organization follows strict protocol that Sextus enforces absolutely. Equipment stacks along the perimeter walls, weapons positioned for instant access. Sleeping positions are assigned. Senior members towards the rear entrance where cold and wet are minimized. Juniors towards the front where weather penetrates. You and Lucius end up in the worst positions, directly beneath the leather seam that will drip condensation throughout the night. The evening meal, prepared communally, offers your first taste of campaign cooking. Each contubernium receives rations: grain, some salted pork, onions, oil. Marcellus proves surprisingly skilled with the cook fire, creating a porridge actually approaching edible. The brothers contribute wild herbs gathered during the march, technically against regulations but universally practiced. Rufus produces salt from somewhere, precious and carefully rationed. Even this simple meal, eaten sitting in the dirt around a fire, carries camaraderie the dining halls never achieved. As darkness falls, the camp transforms. 10,000 people living in close quarters generate noise, conversation, laughter, arguments, the sounds of men relieving themselves, and snores. Yet underlying everything is military discipline. No loud voices, no fires visible from distance, guards posted at every gate and along walls. The casual observer might see chaos. Veterans recognize the careful control, the readiness disguised as routine. Sextus gathers the contubernium for evening briefing. "Tomorrow we cross into disputed territory," he begins, tone serious. "Germanic tribes have been raiding settlements. Our mission: find their base, destroy it, punish the raiders. This means combat. Real combat." The casual way he says it makes your stomach clench. "Some of you won't survive your first battle." That's arithmetic, not pessimism. Stay in formation, follow orders, trust your training. Die well if you must die. Morning arrives with fog thick enough to taste, turning the camp into a landscape of grey shadows and muffled sounds. The Legion breaks camp with the same ruthless efficiency that built it. Within 2 hours, no trace remains. Fires doused and buried, ditches filled, ramparts flattened. The only evidence 5,000 people spent the night here is trampled grass that will recover in days. Rome's army moves like a ghost, consuming resources and leaving minimal trace. The march resumes, but with differences you notice immediately. Cavalry scouts range farther ahead and wider on flanks. Centurions maintain tighter formation control. The silence protocol becomes absolute. Even necessary verbal commands are whispered and passed soldier to soldier. You're entering hostile territory, where Germanic scouts might be watching, where noise could trigger ambush or allow enemies to escape. Sextus walks beside you, occasionally leaning close to whispering whisper observations. "See how the cavalry moves in pairs now, never alone. See how Varenus keeps glancing at the tree line. We're in the hunting ground. Could be nothing. Could be 200 warriors waiting to test our readiness." His calm delivery makes the information more frightening rather than less. Around midday, the column halts abruptly. No signal you can see, just the man ahead stopping, so you stop. The halt ripples through 5,000 men in perfect silence. Minutes pass. Your legs cramp from standing still under the pack weight, but nobody moves. Finally, hand signals pass backward.
Scouts found tracks, large party, moving east, possibly 2 days old. The Legion adjusts course slightly, following. You're hunting now. The abstraction of military service becomes concrete. Somewhere ahead are men who will try to kill you, and you will try to kill them first. The equation is simple and terrible. The Legion establishes camp earlier than usual, only 15 miles covered rather than the standard 20. The site selection reveals tactical thinking you're beginning to recognize. A low hill with clear sight lines, stream nearby for water, forest close enough for timber but far enough to prevent ambush approach. The fortification proceeds faster tonight because combat may come soon, everyone moving with urgent efficiency. Your contubernium draws watch duty, 4-hour shift on the northern rampart starting at midnight. Sextus ensures you understand the stakes. You're not watching for armies. Armies can't sneak up on a fortified camp. You're watching for scouts, 2 or 3 men trying to assess our strength, test our alertness, maybe fire arrows into tents. You see movement in the darkness. You don't shout. You signal the optio with the relay stones. Understood? The relay system is ingenious. Each watchman holds 2 stones. Danger signal, click them twice rapidly. Optio returns with more men silently, investigating without alerting the entire camp. Germanic tribes use our noise against us, Sextus explains. They probe defenses, hoping we'll make commotion over nothing, exhaust ourselves with false alarms. Stay quiet. Stay alert. Most watches are boring. The one that isn't will try to kill you. Your shift begins in absolute darkness. The moon hasn't risen yet, and clouds obscure stars. You stand on the rampart, Lucius 20 feet to your left, another legionary 20 feet right, stretching around the entire camp perimeter. The darkness is so complete you can barely see your own hand. Every sound becomes potential threat. Wind in trees, animal movement, the creeks burble, your own heartbeat hammering in your ears. Hours pass. Nothing happens. Your eyes play tricks, seeing movement that isn't there. Your legs cramp. The cold seeps through your cloak. This is warfare too. The tedium, the discomfort, the hypervigilance sustained through empty hours. Dawn breaks on chaos. The camp wakes to urgent but controlled activity. Scouts return during the night with intelligence. The Germanic raiders' camp located, maybe 8 miles northeast, perhaps 200 warriors plus families. The Legion will march in 2 hours. This is it. Your first combat approaches with the inevitability of sunrise. Breakfast sits wrong in your stomach. You force down barley porridge knowing you need energy, but your body rebels, wanting to vomit from nerves. Around you, reactions vary. Lucius visibly trembling. Marcellus making constant dark jokes. Rufus calm and quiet. The brothers checking each other's equipment repeatedly. Quintus maintaining his steady presence. Sextus watches everyone, reading the fear, accepting it. Listen, he says, gathering the contubernium. Fear is appropriate. You'd be stupid not to feel it. But fear doesn't control you. Training does. When we engage, you'll stop thinking. Your body will do what we've drilled into it thousands of times. Trust that. Trust the man beside you. Trust the formation. He makes eye contact with each of you. Germans are fierce warriors. They're also undisciplined. They charge, we receive them in formation. We slaughter them with efficiency. Stay in line. Kill what's in front of you. We all go home together. The legion forms up in marching order, but different from before. Tighter spacing, weapons unsheathed and ready, shields up. You're not traveling anymore. You're hunting, and the prey has teeth. The column moves with predatory silence. The only sounds the percussion of equipment and the occasional whispered command. Your hand sweats on your pylon shaft, despite the cool morning. The 8 miles feel like 80. Through the trees you smell smoke. The enemy camp is close. The legion halts, deploying from march column into battle formation. Centuries spreading into lines. Cohorts creating waves of soldiers ready to advance.
The Germanic camp sits in a clearing, crude by Roman standards. Scattered hide tents, cook fires burning openly. No defensive perimeter beyond some sharpened stakes. The raiders clearly didn't expect pursuit this far or this fast. Through the trees, you observe maybe 100 warriors, plus women, children, elderly. Your legion outnumbers them massively, but Sextus whispers the danger. Cornered warriors fight desperately. They know we've come to punish raids. They know mercy isn't offered. The legion's deployment is methodical. 3 cohorts form the primary assault line, 1,500 men in tight formation. Cavalry blocks escape routes. Archers position on flanks. The 4th and 5th cohorts remain in reserve. Your 3rd cohort occupies the center of the assault line. This is deliberate. Varenus explained, putting newer troops where they're supported on both flanks by veterans, where the formation density prevents individual panic from spreading. The signal preparation begins. Centurions move along lines checking readiness. Optios adjust spacing. The formation tightens into the classic testudo, shield wall overlapping, creating mobile fortress. You raise your scutum, feeling it lock against the shields beside and above you. The coverage is total but claustrophobic. You can barely see ahead, breathing your own recycled air, pressed tight against Lucius on your left and a veteran on your right. Silence holds. 500 men in your cohort's assault line standing ready, and the only sound is breathing. The Germans haven't noticed you yet. The forest conceals the legion. The silence prevents warning. Your ghost's about to become real. Varenus raises his arm. The entire cohort tenses. His arm drops. The advance begins. The forest erupts with Roman steel in near-complete silence. The psychological effect is devastating. The first clash of your life happens before you comprehend it's happening. The testudo reaches the camp's edge, and Germans, now fully alert and armed, charge with fury. They crash against the shield wall like ocean against stone. The impact staggers you backward, but the men behind catch you, push you forward, keep the formation intact. This is what training meant. The formation strength isn't individual soldiers, but collective mass. A bearded warrior, eyes wild with desperate courage, drives his spear over the shield rim, directly at your face. Training overrides thought. You duck. The spear scrapes across your helmet with a sound like grinded. Your gladius thrusts upward in the automatic response drilled into muscle memory. The blade catches him under the ribs, driving through leather and flesh. His screams hit your ears before your mind processes what you've done. He falls. You withdraw the gladius, sticky with blood, and another German appears immediately. The noise is overwhelming. Germanic war cries, Roman orders, shields striking shields, blades meeting bone, the wet sounds of violence, of wounded and dying. The smell hits you. Blood, shit, sweat, fear. A mixture your body wants to reject, but can't because you're fighting for survival.
Time loses meaning. Might be seconds, might be hours. Enemies appear. You thrust. They fall or don't. More enemies appear. Your arm operates independently of thought, the gladius stabbing and withdrawing in endless rhythm. Beside you, Lucius fights with desperation. You can't hear words, just raw sound. A German axe strikes his shield, splitting the wood. You pull him backward. Another legionary fills his position instantly. The formation self-repairs. The violence is industrial, efficient, terrible. The Germans fight with courage but no coordination. The legion slaughters them. The battle ends faster than it began. Germanic resistance collapses when their warriors die in numbers too catastrophic to sustain hope. Some flee into forest. Cavalry hunts them. Others surrender. The legion shows no mercy for raiders who burned Roman settlements. Within an hour of first contact, the camp is silent except for moaning wounded and crackling fires. You stand in the aftermath, gladius still in hand, covered in blood, unable to process what happened. Bodies everywhere. Germanic warriors, women who took up weapons, some children caught in the violence. Roman casualties comparatively light. Your century lost 3 dead, maybe 15 wounded seriously enough for field hospital. The arithmetic is brutal. Romans killed perhaps 150 for cost of 3. This is what legion efficiency produces. Sextus finds you standing immobile and slaps you hard enough to refocus your attention. Snap out of it. Battle's over. Work begins. Check yourself for wounds. Adrenaline hides injuries. Check your equipment. Check your tent mates. Then we process prisoners. His matter-of-fact tone helps. Something concrete to do. Task to focus on instead of horror to process. You inventory yourself. Cuts on forearm. Gash on cheek. Bruised ribs from shield impact. Hands bleeding from death gripping your gladius. None serious. Your armor held. Your shield needs replacement, scarred and split. Your gladius requires cleaning, blood drying sticky on the blade. Lucius sits on the ground vomiting, but he's alive, functional. The brothers help each other with wounds. Quintus carries a dead legionary from your century. Rufus restrains prisoners. Marcellus checks bodies for salvageable equipment. The legion transforms from combat formation to occupation force with practiced efficiency. Welcome to warfare. Brief violence, extended aftermath. The legion doesn't camp at the battle site. Blood and bodies attract scavengers and disease. By late afternoon, you march 3 miles east to clean ground and establish proper fortifications. The day's death toll becomes clear during evening formation. Century strength report shows your century lost 3 dead, 17 wounded, 3 critically, 5 minor injuries. The third cohort overall lost 28 dead, 80 wounded. The legion total? 63 dead, 240 wounded. Germanic casualties. Estimated 170 killed, maybe 30 escaped. The numbers feel abstract until Varenus reads the names. 3 from your century: Gaius Varro, Marcus Piso, Lucius Tertius. You didn't know them well, different contuberniums, but you'd shared barracks, seen them daily. Now they're corpses in the burial details cart. Varro was 19. Piso had a wife in Capua. Tertius had joked about surviving long enough to get his citizenship and land grant. Dead now. Reduced to inventory loss. Evening mess tastes like ashes. Your contubernium sits in silence.
everyone processing their first combat in different ways. Quintus cleans his weapons with mechanical precision. Rufus stares at nothing. The brothers hold hands like children. Marcellus can't stop talking, nervous energy pouring out as words. Lucius refuses food, face grey with shock. Sextus eats methodically, having seen this countless times. "It doesn't get easier," Sextus finally says. "Anyone tells you it does is lying." You learn to function through it, but killing men stays ugly. Today was clean, enemy clear, orders straightforward, outcome decisive. Most combat isn't that simple. You did well. You followed orders, held formation, survived. That's success. He pauses. Sleep if you can. Tomorrow we march toward the next objective. The campaign continues. The words offer no comfort, but establish reality. This is your life now. Sleep, when it comes, brings nightmares. You wake repeatedly, sometimes from dreams of violence, sometimes from Lucius's screaming, sometimes from your own. The bearded warrior you killed appears in dreams, except now he has your father's face, your brother's voice. You wake sweating despite the cold, disoriented, unsure if the blood you feel is real or remembered. Around the tent, others experience similar struggles. Quintus wakes quietly but doesn't return to sleep. Rufus mutters in his native tongue, clearly dreaming. Even Sextus sleeps poorly, decades of accumulated trauma manifesting. Morning brings no relief, just different tasks. The burial detail returns with the dead. Roman casualties receive proper funeral rites. Germanic bodies left for scavengers, per Roman practice for defeated enemies. The ceremony for the three from your century follows traditional forms. Eulogies delivered, belongings distributed, names carved into the death register. Their equipment is cleaned, repaired, and issued to replacements who will join the legion at the next major camp. You stand in formation watching the funeral pyres burn, understanding for the first time that this will be your fate too. Not if, but when. Maybe in battle, maybe from disease, maybe from accident during construction or march. The legion consumes its soldiers with steady appetite. The promise of land grants and citizenship after 25 years assumes you survive 25 years, and the mathematics say most won't. Centurion Varenus addresses the century after the funeral. Grieve if you must, briefly. Then function. The legion moves today. We have orders to pursue escaped raiders northward. You've seen combat now. Some of you handled it well, some poorly. All of you survived. That makes you more valuable than you were yesterday. Experience has cost. You've paid it. Now earn return on that investment by staying sharp. The brutal practicality would be offensive if it wasn't honest. The legion marches north, pursuing the raiders who escaped. The pace is punishing. Command wants to catch them before they reach Allied Germanic territory. 25 miles today, same tomorrow. No rest days. Your body protests, still recovering from combat trauma and inadequate sleep. Blisters reopen. The pack weight feels doubled. Your mind wanders dangerously. Several times you nearly walk into the man ahead because you stopped paying attention. Around midday, Lucius collapses. Simply drops unconscious mid-march, sprawling in the dust. The century halts immediately. Man down means potential ambush or heat illness. Either way, requires response. The medicus examines him quickly. Severe exhaustion, compounded by psychological shock. Not eating, not sleeping properly.
The diagnosis is blunt. He can't continue today's march. Put him in the baggage cart. The baggage cart, where wounded and sick ride, represents failure in Legion culture. Marcus rides the cart equals Marcus can't hack it. Marcus is weak. Marcus might not make a legionary. You watch them load Lucius into the cart with other incapacitated soldiers. See the shame on his face, even through the exhaustion. Understand that this marks him as suspect. Sextus reads your concern. He'll recover, or he won't, he says quietly as the march resumes. Some men break from first combat, function after recovery. Some never recover. Nothing you can do but let it resolve. Focus on yourself. You're struggling too. I see it. Eat more. Sleep, when possible. Process the trauma, but don't let it consume you. The campaign continues whether you're ready or not. The harshness helps somehow. Expecting sympathy would be comforting, but useless. Expecting honesty is brutal, but functional. You force down extra rations that evening, despite no appetite. The Legion catches the fleeing Germanic raiders 3 days later. This time there's no camp to assault, just a running fight through dense forest. The terrain favors neither side. Romans lose formation advantage, Germans lose escape routes. The battle fragments into dozens of small melees, contuberniums fighting independently, organization dissolving into chaos. Your group, minus Lucius still in medical care, encounters 6 Germans in a clearing. They turn to fight because running is futile. Sextus instantly shifts tactics for small unit combat. No formation, too few. Partner pairs, Marcus, you're with me. Go! The fight is faster, more chaotic than the battle. A massive German swings an axe at your head. You duck. Sextus thrusts into his side. The man falls screaming. Another charges you. Your gladius catches his thigh. He stumbles. Rufus's spear finishes him. 2 Germans attack the brothers. They fight back to back, blades working in perfect coordination. Quintus battles one-on-one with a warrior nearly his size, trading blows until Quintus's superior training prevails. It ends in perhaps 30 seconds. 6 Germans dead, your group uninjured. The speed shocks you. In formation, everything felt slow, processional. This was explosive, instinctive. Survival reflex overriding thought. You killed a man, and don't remember deciding to do it. Don't remember the motion, only the result. A body bleeding at your feet. Sextus claps your shoulder. Better. You're reacting now, not thinking. That's what saves you in forest fights. He sounds almost proud. The praise feels wrong. You're becoming efficient at killing, and some part of you recognizes you should feel more disturbed about that than you do. The Legion regroups by nightfall. Casualties today, 14 dead, 38 wounded. Germanic survivors, none. Complete tactical success. You're getting good at violence. The campaign enters its 6th week. You've participated in 4 more engagements, none as large as the first battle, but each adding to your count of men killed. You've stopped counting at 12. The number feels meaningless now, just another metric like miles marched or rations consumed. Sextus says this adaptation is normal, that soldiers who maintain acute emotional response to every kill don't survive long. You believe him because the alternative, that you're becoming something monstrous, is harder to accept. Lucius returns to active duty after 2 weeks in medical care. He's physically recovered but changed. The cheerful baker's son who joked constantly has been replaced by someone quieter, more careful. He functions adequately, holds formation, follows orders, kills when required. But the spark is gone. You recognize he's broken in ways that won't heal, that the Legion has taken something from him that can't be returned.
He'll serve his 25 years if he survives, but he'll never be whole again. The contubernium has adapted too. What started as 8 strangers thrown together has become a functional unit through shared trauma. You know Quintus takes first watch because he can't sleep before midnight. You know Rufus hoards salt to trade with camp followers. You know the brothers signal each other with subtle hand gestures during combat. You know Marcellus cheats at dice, but everyone tolerates it because his jokes relieve tension. You know Sextus's old back wound aches before rain. These men are your family now, the farm and village life feeling increasingly distant and unreal. The Legion establishes semi-permanent camp as summer heat arrives. Command declares the raiding problem sufficiently addressed. You've killed or scattered 3 Germanic tribes, burned a dozen villages, secured a 100-mile stretch of frontier. The cost? 283 Roman dead, over 600 wounded. Germanic casualties estimated at 1,000 plus. Rome calls this success.
Semi-permanent garrison life reveals warfare's other face, not the brief violence of combat, but the grinding tedium of occupation. Days follow identical patterns: morning inspection, equipment maintenance, training drills to prevent skill degradation, construction projects expanding fortifications, afternoon patrols through secured territory, evening duties. The routine is mind-numbing, yet Sextus insists this matters as much as combat readiness. Bored soldiers get sloppy, he explains. Sloppy soldiers die when combat returns. Discipline during peace keeps you alive during war. The local Roman settlements gradually resume normal function now that raiding has stopped. Merchants arrive selling wine, oil, preserved foods, luxuries soldiers crave after weeks of military rations. Camp followers, merchants, prostitutes, craftsmen, families establish a permanent presence outside the camp walls, creating a civilian shadow city serving military needs. The Legion tolerates and regulates this, understanding that soldiers need outlets beyond violence. You spend your first earned wages on decent wine and a letter writer's services. The scribe, an educated Greek making living from illiterate soldiers, writes your dictation to your mother. You describe the successful campaign in sanitized terms. We engaged enemy raiders multiple times. Our century performed with distinction. I remain healthy and learning much. You don't mention the 12 men you've killed, the nightmares that persist, the violence that's become routine. Your mother doesn't need that burden. The truth would serve no purpose except transferring your trauma to her. The letter costs 2 weeks' wages. The wine costs 3 days. You drink more than intended, trying to quiet memories, and wake with crushing headache, having gained nothing but temporary oblivion. Sextus finds you vomiting behind the latrines and delivers characteristic wisdom. Wine helps until it doesn't. Use it carefully or it uses you. I've seen more soldiers destroyed by wine than combat. Choose your poison wisely. 3 months into garrison duty, new orders arrive. The Legion marches west to deal with tribal unrest in Gaul. The prospect of another campaign triggers mixed reactions. Part of you dreads returning to violence. The nightmares from the first campaign haven't stopped. Part of you welcomes it. Garrison tedium has become its own torture, and at least combat provides purpose. Sextus notices the contradiction and addresses it directly. You're becoming a soldier, he says matter-of-factly. Real soldiers hate war and crave it simultaneously. Hate the violence, death, fear, exhaustion. Crave the clarity, the purpose, the intensity of being fully alive, because death lurks so close.
It's not contradictory. It's the nature of this life. Accept it, or it'll tear you apart. The march west covers 400 miles over 6 weeks. Your body has adapted. Miles that would have destroyed you during initial training now pass in sustainable rhythm. The Legion moves with practiced efficiency, building camps, breaking them, marching, repeating. The landscape changes from Italian peninsula to Gallic territories. Forests growing denser, settlements more crude, populations less Romanized. Evidence of Rome's influence appears everywhere. Roads paved with stone, markers indicating distance to major cities, way stations for official messengers, occasional legionary outposts securing key points. This is how Rome conquers, not just through military force, but through infrastructure that makes conquered territory gradually, inevitably, Roman. The roads carry trade, culture, language, law. Give it a generation, and these Gallic territories will consider themselves Roman, will send their sons to the legions, will forget they were ever anything else. Halfway through the march, a courier delivers mail from home. Your mother's response to your letter arrives, written by the village priest since she can't write, dictated in her voice. She thanks the gods for your safety, describes mundane village events, mentions your sister's upcoming wedding, asks if you're eating enough. The normalcy feels alien. That world seems impossibly distant from your reality. The Gallic campaign proves different from the Germanic raids. These enemies fight with more organization, using terrain tactically, employing coordinated ambush tactics learned through generations of resisting Roman expansion. The first engagement demonstrates this immediately. Your century walks into a prepared ambush in a forest ravine, enemies attacking from elevated positions with tactical advantage. The initial volley of javelins and arrows kills 5 men instantly. The century deploys into defensive formation automatically, shields up, but the terrain prevents proper testudo formation. Germans attacked in disorganized charges. Gauls attack in coordinated waves, probing for weaknesses, retreating when Romans solidify defense, attacking again from different angles. The battle lasts 3 hours of sustained pressure, rather than one decisive engagement. You kill 3 men during the fighting. You count because they're the first enemies whose faces you see clearly before and during killing them. The first is barely older than you, blonde tribal warrior whose eyes show fear matching your own before your gladius opens his throat. The second is older, veteran warrior who nearly kills you before Quintus saves you by spearing him from the side. The third you kill during brutal ground fighting after both of you fall, driving your pugio into his armpit repeatedly until he stops moving. When the Gauls finally withdraw, not routed, just choosing to disengage, your century has lost 18 dead, 34 wounded. You survived uninjured physically. Psychologically, something shifted. The violence of this fight exceeded the Germanic campaign's entire accumulation. In 3 hours, you experienced more sustained combat than 6 weeks of raiding suppression. This is real warfare against organized resistance, and it's vastly worse than anything previous. The Gallic campaign stretches through autumn into early winter. Engagement after engagement follows similar patterns. Ambushes, running fights, sieges of hill forts, raids on supply lines. The enemy adapts constantly, learning from defeats, changing tactics, refusing to offer the decisive battle Rome prefers. This is guerrilla warfare generations before the term exists, and it grinds down the legion through attrition rather than catastrophic loss. Your century's strength depletes steadily. 18 dead in first ambush, 11 in second engagement, 8 in third,
6 in 4th. Replacements arrive, but die before integrating fully. The veterans survive through experience. The new recruits die learning lessons the veterans already know. You've crossed into veteran status through simple survival. After 4 major engagements and countless skirmishes, you're now among the experienced members, the ones newer soldiers look to for guidance. The responsibility sits uncomfortably. You're 20 weeks into your first campaign season, barely trained by any real standard. Yet you're teaching even newer recruits because you've survived long enough to learn what kills soldiers. You show them how to watch for ambush signs, how to maintain equipment in wet weather, how to sleep in full kit, how to kill efficiently. You've become what Sextus was to you, a bridge between innocence and veteran competence, purchased with blood and trauma. Lucius doesn't survive the 3rd engagement. A Gallic spear takes him through the throat during a river crossing. Quick death. Probably didn't feel it. Small mercy. You help carry his body to the burial detail, standing at his funeral pyre remembering the cheerful baker's son who vomited every morning during training. The Legion broke him psychologically in the first campaign. The Gauls finished what Rome started. You feel less than you should. Grief has become another luxury you can't afford. Winter brings temporary campaign cessation. Both sides withdraw to winter quarters by mutual exhaustion. Your legion establishes substantial fortifications for cold weather survival. The Gauls retreat to their settlements. An unofficial truce settles over the region, because fighting in deep snow and freezing temperatures kills more men than it's worth. Even Rome's military machine acknowledges nature's superior force. Winter quarters prove almost harder than active campaign. During combat, adrenaline and purpose override discomfort. During winter garrison, you have nothing but time to process accumulated trauma. The nightmares intensify. Every night brings faces of men you've killed, especially the 3 from the forest ravine whose eyes you saw clearly. You wake screaming occasionally, embarrassing yourself, disturbing tent mates who suffer similarly. The Legion's medical staff, what passes for military psychology in the ancient world, offers limited help. The medicus explains that disturbed sleep is common among soldiers, that it may fade with time or may persist indefinitely, that wine helps some men and destroys others, that fundamentally you must learn to live with what you've done. The brutal honesty is characteristic of Roman military culture. We break you, we use you, we offer no false promises of healing. Sextus shares his own experience during a particularly bad night, when your screaming wakes the entire tent. 20 years, and I still see the first man I killed. Numidian warrior. Looked like he should have been farming, not fighting. I dream about him weekly. It doesn't stop. You adapt or you break. Choose carefully. He says it without judgment, just stating reality. You're impressed he's maintained function for 2 decades carrying that burden. You're terrified you might have to do the same. Spring arrives with new orders and new challenges. The Legion receives significant reinforcements. 400 men replacing winter casualties and campaign losses. Among them, completely green recruits fresh from training, some with barely 3 months preparation. You watch them arrive and see yourself 8 months ago, nervous, uncertain, romanticizing military service. You know what awaits them. Many won't survive their first engagement. Command assigns you as Optio, junior officer position, for a new contubernium. The promotion comes with slightly better pay and substantially more responsibility. You're now directly responsible for 8 men's survival and combat effectiveness. At 18, having served less than a year, you're teaching and leading soldiers, some older than you.
The absurdity would be funny if the stakes weren't lethal. Your new contubernium includes 3 veterans transferred from depleted units and 5 new recruits. The veterans, Cassius, Felix, and Paulus, assess you skeptically. You're young, recently promoted, unproven in leadership. The recruits look at you with nervous respect because your scarred face and veteran bearing mark you as someone who's survived what they're about to face. You channel Sextus's approach, brutal honesty, practical teaching, no false promises. I've served 8 months, you tell them. I've participated in 12 major engagements and countless skirmishes. I've killed 19 men that I'm certain of, probably more. I've seen 87 men from my training cohort die. Those numbers mean I've survived long enough to learn what kills soldiers. Listen to me, follow orders, maintain formation, and you might survive. Ignore me, and you'll probably die quickly. I prefer you survive because replacing dead soldiers is tedious. The brutal delivery, learned from Sextus, establishes authority through competence rather than rank. They understand you're not pretending to be something you're not. You're a survivor, teaching survival.
The spring campaign begins with a major offensive. The Legion marches to besiege a significant Gallic stronghold controlling vital river crossing. This isn't raiding suppression or guerrilla warfare response. This is deliberate, strategic conquest. The siege will teach you warfare's most grinding form, not the explosive violence of field combat, but the methodical, exhausting process of reducing fortified positions. The Gallic fort sits atop a steep hill, timber walls reinforced with earth and stone, defended by perhaps 800 warriors plus civilians. Your legion, 5,000 men, surrounds it completely, establishing siege lines, cutting supply routes, beginning the slow strangulation. Roman siege warfare operates with industrial efficiency. Engineers construct siege engines, infantry digs approach trenches, artillery positions target defensive positions. Supply lines funnel materials to sustain the besiegers. Your contubernium draws trench duty, 12-hour shifts digging approach trenches under occasional arrow fire from defenders. The work is brutally hard, exposed and dangerous. Defenders shower you with arrows, rocks, burning oil when you approach too close. You dig behind portable shields, advancing inches per day, zigzagging to prevent direct fire down trench lines. 3 men from other units die during your first shift, struck by arrows. The randomness is terrifying. One moment digging, next moment dead. After a week of approach trenches, your unit joins the assault team for a probing attack against the gates. This isn't intended to breach the fort. It's a test of defenses, forcing defenders to reveal their positions and capabilities. You advance under shield cover, reaching the gates, enduring intense missile fire while engineers attempt to set fires. The defenders fight desperately, dropping rocks, firing arrows, pouring boiling water. Your shield takes 3 arrow hits before the retreat signal sounds. The test attack costs 53 Roman casualties, including 8 dead. You're uninjured, but exhausted. This is siege warfare. Grinding attrition where victory comes through superior logistics and patience, rather than heroic valor. The siege enters its 4th week. The Gallic defenders show no signs of surrender despite increasingly desperate conditions. Roman artillery, ballistae and onagers, pounds their walls continuously. Approach trenches reach the fortification base. Siege towers rise near completion. The noose tightens, yet the defenders fight on with courage that even their enemies must respect. Your contubernium participates in a major assault, the first serious attempt to breach the walls. Dawn attack. 3 cohorts hitting different sections simultaneously, attempting to overwhelm defenders through multiple threats. Your unit assaults the eastern wall using a siege tower. massive wooden structure on wheels, built to match the wall height, allowing soldiers to storm directly onto the ramparts. The tower approach is terrifying. You're inside the structure with 30 other men, creaking wood surrounding you, defenders throwing everything at the tower: arrows, fire, rocks. The tower catches fire twice, requiring emergency extinguishing. It tips dangerously on uneven ground. Men pray, vomit, grip weapons with white knuckles. Then the tower reaches the wall. The assault ramp drops, and you're charging onto the ramparts into desperate close combat. The fighting on the wall is the worst you've experienced. Confined space, no room for formation, individual combat. Defenders fighting for their homes and families with desperate fury. You kill 2 men in quick succession, take a sword cut to your arm that you barely feel through adrenaline. Push forward with your unit. For perhaps 10 minutes you hold a section of wall. Then Gallic reinforcements counterattack in overwhelming numbers, driving you back. The retreat down the tower while defending from pursuit is chaos. 3 men from your unit die. Cassius takes a spear through his leg, crippling injury ending his military career. The assault fails. All 3 attacks repulsed. Roman casualties, 237 including 41 dead. Gallic casualties, estimated 98. You've expanded your kill count to 21, but lost 3 men from your unit. 3 soldiers whose survival was your responsibility. The siege drags into its 7th week. Starvation begins breaking the defenders' resistance where combat couldn't. Roman scouts report increasingly desperate conditions inside. People eating leather, horses, dogs, eventually each other. The psychological warfare is deliberate. Rome demonstrates that resistance brings not glory, but slow horror. Surrender means slavery, but survival. Fight and starve, simple equation. Your reduced unit, now 5 members after casualties, continues siege duties. The work has become routine. Trench digging, artillery support, guard shifts, occasional probing attacks. The monotony punctuated by random death. A man beside you takes an arrow through the eye, drops dead instantly. No warning, no drama. Just sudden transition from living to dead. You've stopped processing these deaths emotionally. They're statistics, inventory adjustments, tactical data. Your capacity for grief exhausted somewhere around death 40 or 50. You've stopped counting. The psychological state worries you more than combat dangers. You feel increasingly detached, observing your own life from distance, performing duties mechanically. The nightmares have stopped, not because you've healed, but because you've broken something inside yourself. Sextus notices and delivers concerning wisdom. That numbness you're feeling, that's dangerous. Means you're shutting down emotionally to function. Works short-term, fails long-term. Find something human to care about, or you become a thing that wears human shape. I've seen it happen. You take his advice seriously, because Sextus survived 20 years when most don't. You start writing letters home regularly, not sending them, just writing them, as exercise in maintaining connection to non-military identity. You help the new recruits beyond military necessity, teaching them camp skills, sharing extra rations, demonstrating small kindnesses. The effort feels artificial initially, but gradually begins restoring some emotional capacity. You're fighting not just the Gauls, but your own psychological dissolution. The siege ends on the 53rd day. The defenders, reduced to perhaps 300 combat-capable warriors from original 800, with civilian population dying from starvation, send envoys requesting terms. Roman response is characteristic.
Unconditional surrender. All military-age males executed, women and children enslaved, property confiscated, complete destruction of the stronghold as warning to other tribes. Rome doesn't negotiate, it dictates. The surrender ceremony is brief. The gates open. Gallic warriors emerge, disarmed, walking to their execution with dignity that's heartbreaking to witness. They fought courageously for 53 days, inflicted significant casualties, demonstrated every virtue Rome claims to value. Their reward: systematic execution. You watch from formation as Roman auxiliaries, non-citizen troops, kill 300 men in efficient assembly line fashion. The bodies pile. The civilians watch their men die, knowing slavery awaits. Command assigns your sentry to guard detail during the civilian processing. You stand with pike in hand, watching Romans catalogue human beings like livestock. Young women separated for sexual slavery. Children evaluated for training potential. Elderly and sick killed immediately as economically worthless. The industrial efficiency of it makes combat violence seem honest by comparison. At least in battle there's pretense of mutual combat. This is just systematic cruelty disguised as conquest. One woman, maybe 30, holding a daughter perhaps 8, recognizes you as the soldier who killed her husband during the wall assault. She doesn't attack or accuse. She just looks at you with expression combining grief, hatred, and broken resignation. The daughter looks at you with child's incomprehension. You're the monster from nightmares made real. They're marched to the slave pens. You'll never see them again. They'll never forget you. The Legion remains in the region through summer, consolidating control, constructing permanent fortifications, establishing civilian administration. Your unit rotates between garrison duty, patrol work, and construction projects. The routine military occupation work lacks combat's intensity, but carries its own strain. Your police force, construction crew, and occasional executioner for a conquered population that hates you with justified fury. Patrol duty through recently pacified villages reveals conquest's aftermath. You see devastation Rome caused: burned settlements, fields destroyed, populations reduced, survivors hostile and broken. Some villages offer food and cooperation from fear. Others resist passively, providing misleading information, hiding fugitives, sabotaging Roman projects subtly. A few resist actively, killing isolated Roman soldiers when opportunity allows. Your contubernium loses another man to resistance. Felix gets throat cut by a Gallic woman posing as prostitute in a village tavern. The woman is caught immediately, tortured for information she doesn't have, executed publicly as warning. Felix is buried with military honors. The cycle of violence continues. Rome conquers, locals resist. Rome punishes, locals hate more. Resistance continues. You're part of a machine that generates its own opposition through its methods. The moral weight accumulates. You've killed 23 men in combat, justifiable by military standards. You've participated in executing prisoners, processing civilians into slavery, collective punishment of resisting villages. These actions exist in grayer moral territory. Roman military discipline doesn't acknowledge ambiguity. Orders are orders, duty is duty, questioning is insubordination. You follow orders, while growing internal conviction that what you're doing, while legal and military sanctioned, is fundamentally wrong. Sextus notices your struggle. His advice:
Soldiers don't make policy. We execute it. You can disagree with conquest while performing your duty, or you can refuse and die for nothing. Pick the option that leaves you alive to maybe change things someday. Autumn brings campaign orders. March south, returning to winter quarters. The Legion's effective strength has diminished significantly. You started the year at 5,000 combat effectives. You end at 3,800. 1,500 casualties across the campaign season. 640 dead. 860 wounded or medically discharged. The mathematical brutality of military service. Nearly 1/3 casualties in 7 months. Some cohorts lost half their strength. Your original training group of 40 recruits. 7 surviving. 33 dead or discharged. The march south carries different emotional weight than spring's northward campaign march. Then you march toward unknown with nervous anticipation. Now you march away from horror with exhausted relief. The Legion moves like wounded animal limping towards safety, maintaining discipline through ingrained habit more than enthusiasm. Veterans move mechanically. Newer survivors show visible trauma. The army functions but carries heavy psychological burden. You're 19 now, having served just over a year. You've aged a decade. Your kill count has reached 23 confirmed, probably 30 plus if you count uncertain ones. You've lost track of friends dead, stopped counting around 40. Your contubernium has rotated completely. Started with Sextus, Lucius, Quintus, Rufus, Titus, Decimus, Marcellus. Now only Sextus and Paulus remain from various transfers and casualties. The rest, dead or medically discharged. You command 5 new men whose names you deliberately haven't fully learned, because learning names makes their deaths hurt more. The emotional strategy disturbs you. You're deliberately dehumanizing the soldiers under your command for self-protection. The recognition that you're becoming exactly the kind of officer you'd have hated a year ago. Efficient, emotionally distant, focused on mission over men, feels like betrayal of your earlier self. But that earlier self didn't understand. Emotional investment in doomed men is cruelty to yourself. Winter quarters bring familiar routines. Maintenance, training, recovery, processing trauma. Your nightmares have evolved. They're less explosive violence, more the woman and daughter from the fortress, Felix dying in the tavern, the systematic execution of prisoners. The violence you participated in directly haunts less than the systemic cruelty you witnessed and enabled. Combat killing feels clean compared to occupation's grinding moral compromises. The Legion receives an official commendation from the provincial governor. Successful campaign, strategic objectives achieved, frontier secured. The commendation comes with modest bonuses. You receive extra pay for your option performance. The money feels like blood payment, literally, since it's funded by selling conquered populations into slavery. You send some home to your family because they need it. You spend some on wine because you need it. The transaction feels morally bankrupt, but necessary. Sextus finds you drunk one evening and delivers hard truth. You're at decision point. Year 1. Most soldiers still feel things. Guilt, horror, moral conflict. Year 2, you choose. Go numb and survive, mentally damaged. Or find accommodation with what you do and maintain humanity. Third option. Break completely. Desert or suicide. I've seen all 3. Choose carefully. His bluntness forces clarity. You can't maintain current path. Feeling everything means drowning in accumulated trauma. Going completely numb means becoming thing rather than person. The middle path. Acknowledging moral injury while finding ways to remain human. Seems impossible, but represents only sustainable option. You start writing regularly to your mother again. honest letters you'll never send. You help new recruits genuinely, not just training but mentoring. You refuse one order for first time. Told to participate in executing deserter, you decline, citing your Optio rank doesn't require participation in executions. Your Centurion accepts refusal without punishment, respecting your year of service. Small resistances, tiny preservation of humanity. Possibly meaningless. Possibly everything. Spring brings your second campaign season. The Legion receives reinforcement. Another 400 recruits replacing winter casualties and discharges. You're now among the senior Optios, 19 years old, commanding new soldiers, teaching lessons purchased with blood. The absurdity no longer registers. You've normalized having teenage commanders, because survival creates legitimacy faster than age. The campaign differs from previous. Fewer major engagements, more occupation duty, pacification work, infrastructure construction. Rome shifts from conquest to consolidation. The Legion builds roads, establishes supply depots, creates permanent fortifications. You're transitioning from assault force to garrison army. The work is less immediately dangerous, but more grinding. Endless construction and patrol duties maintaining conquered territory. Your unit participates in road construction, backbreaking labor in the name of imperial infrastructure. 12-hour days, cutting trees, moving earth, laying stone, building the roads that will carry Roman trade and culture and military power through Gallic territories. The work lacks glory, but carries profound strategic importance. These roads Rome builds today will still exist 2,000 years later. They're literally paving permanence into conquered landscape. During construction work, you interact more with local populations. Most Gauls have accepted Roman rule through pragmatic calculation. Resistance is futile. Cooperation offers survival. Some even begin adopting Roman customs, learning Latin, integrating into imperial system. You watch the mechanism of conquest. Military force opens territory. Infrastructure consolidates control. Economic integration completes absorption. In 2 generations, these Gauls will consider themselves Romans. Their children will serve in the legions. The tribes fighting desperately 2 years ago will vanish into imperial identity. Midsummer brings unexpected orders. Your legion marches to a different frontier region, where tribal unrest threatens Roman control. The displacement demonstrates military reality. Legions are mobile tools deployed wherever needed. Soldiers' personal geography irrelevant to strategic requirements. You've served 2 years, survived 2 campaign seasons, and remain deployable assets for another 23 years. The march covers 300 miles over 5 weeks. The landscape transforms, from Gallic forests to open plains to mountain passes. Roman Empire's scale becomes tangible through endless marching. The roads you travel were built by previous legions. The way stations exist because Romans demand infrastructure. Every mile demonstrates Rome's systematic territorial control. You're both beneficiary and builder of this system, marching on roads previous soldiers built, knowing your labor builds infrastructure for future legions. The new frontier region shows different conflict dynamics. Here, Rome faces not organized resistance, but raiding and banditry from mountain tribes. The legion's mission? Hunt bandits, secure trade routes, establish Roman authority in loosely controlled territories. It's law enforcement at military scale, tracking criminals through mountains,
engaging small groups rather than armies, capturing rather than slaughtering where possible. Your contubernium draws patrol duty through mountain villages. The work differs from previous campaigns. Less direct combat, more investigation and pursuit. You interview villagers, track bandits, set ambushes at predicted raid locations. One pursuit leads to capturing 5 bandits in mountain camp. You bring them back for interrogation and execution. One is 15, younger than you were at recruitment. He fought because his village was destroyed by previous Roman pacification. You're enforcing the order created by the violence that made him a bandit. The circular logic is dizzying.
Your second campaign season concludes with the Legion establishing permanent mountain forts, substantial stone and timber fortifications that will garrison troops year-round. The shift from mobile campaign to permanent occupation signals Rome's assessment that the region requires ongoing military presence. You're helping build the infrastructure of permanent conquest. The construction work consumes months. Your unit contributes to fort building, mixing mortar, laying stone, cutting timber, installing gates. The work is brutal manual labor, but carries satisfaction of creating something substantial. This fort will stand for centuries, housing thousands of soldiers over generations. You're literally building Roman history. During construction, you receive news from home. Your father died during harvest season, natural causes, age and work finally exceeding his endurance. The letter from your mother, written by the village priest, describes peaceful death surrounded by family. You feel distant grief. Your father seems like someone from another life, barely real, a figure from childhood memory. You've spent more time as a soldier than as a farmer's son. Your military identity has consumed your civilian origins. You request leave to attend funeral rites, but it's denied. Construction schedule doesn't permit optio absence, and your father's funeral occurred 4 months before the letter reached you anyway. The denial carries no malice, just military pragmatism. The Legion's schedule matters more than individual grief. You accept this without protest, because it's true and obvious, and completely in character for the institution you serve. Sextus finds you sitting alone after receiving the news. He says nothing, just sits beside you in silence for an hour. The gesture means more than words could. He understands that sometimes acknowledgement matters more than comfort, presence more than advice. After an hour, he stands, clasps your shoulder once and leaves. You return to construction work, because work continues despite death.
3 years into your service, halfway to citizenship and land grant, you receive promotion to centurion. The promotion is unusual for someone so young, but reflects brutal mathematics. Experienced officers died in campaigns. Survivors advance by default. You're 20 years old, commanding 80 men in a century, making tactical decisions, bearing responsibility for unit's survival and effectiveness. The promotion comes with benefits, substantially better pay, private quarters instead of shared barracks, authority over operations, access to Legion's senior leadership. It also comes with crushing responsibility. As Optio, you led 8 men. Losing 1 was tragedy. As Centurion, you command 80. Losses are inevitable, statistical reality you must process without breaking. You'll order men to their deaths, knowingly. You'll make decisions where all options cost lives, and must choose which costs fewer. The weight is immense. Your first major decision as Centurion comes immediately. Orders arrive for your century to clear a valley of bandits. Estimated 40 enemies in mountain stronghold. You review intelligence, scout routes, plan the assault. Your approach reflects lessons learned through 3 years, Silent night advance. Dawn attack using terrain for advantage. Multiple assault teams attacking simultaneously. The plan is good, professional, learned from veterans. It succeeds. You capture the stronghold, kill 38 bandits, lose 4 legionaries killed and 11 wounded. The success feels hollow. 4 men dead means 4 letters home to families, 4 funerals, 4 humans reduced to inventory losses because you ordered them into positions where they died. Intellectually, you understand military command requires accepting this. Emotionally, it's devastating. Sextus visits after the engagement and delivers his wisdom. Command means carrying the dead. Every decision kills someone. Perfect strategy doesn't exist. You can't command a century without accepting that some of them will die from your orders. Grieve if you must, but keep commanding. The alternative, hesitating for fear of causing deaths, kills more men than bold, competent action.
Your 4th year of service brings a different experience. The Legion doesn't campaign. Political changes in Rome redirect military resources elsewhere. Your Legion garrisons the consolidated frontier, maintaining order rather than expanding it. For the first time since recruitment, you experience full year without major combat. Patrols, guard duty, training, construction, but no significant violence. The absence of combat reveals how deeply warfare has shaped you. You're constantly alert for threats that don't materialize. You wake from nightmares less frequently, but never sleep soundly. You process the permanent alterations. You'll never trust crowds, never relax completely, never stop assessing tactical situations reflexively. War has rewired fundamental aspects of your psychology permanently. The garrison year allows reflection you've avoided during campaigns. You've killed approximately 33 men that you're certain of, probably 40 plus if uncertain ones counted. You've participated in systematic violence, occupation, slavery processing, executions. You've commanded men to their deaths. You carry permanent psychological damage. You've become an efficient instrument of imperial violence. At 20 years old, you've accumulated more trauma than most people experience in full lifetimes. You also recognize growth. You're a competent centurion, effective leader, skilled tactician, experienced administrator. You maintain humanity despite pressure toward numbness. You help younger soldiers survive physically and psychologically. You write honest letters to your mother you'll never send, maintaining connection to civilian identity. You resist small injustices when possible. You're building towards something, unclear what, but movement rather than stagnation. Sextus musters out this year. 25 years completed, citizenship earned, land grant awarded. You attend his discharge ceremony, watching the scarred veteran finally freed from military obligation. He sought you out before leaving. You'll survive the remaining years. You've learned what matters: competence, humanity, and acceptance that you're part of something larger that doesn't care about individuals. Your 4th year ends with personal milestone. You've survived longer than most. Statistics are stark. Of 40 recruits who started training with you, only 3 remain in service. You, 1 other soldier, and a medically discharged man working as clerk. 37 are dead or gone. You're statistical outlier, survivor through combination of competence, luck, and psychological resilience that let you function through accumulating trauma. Winter brings quiet reflection in your centurion's quarters. You write a letter to your mother, this one you'll actually send,
describing your life in sanitized terms appropriate for civilian understanding. You mention promotion to centurion, garrison duty, construction projects, helping younger soldiers. You don't mention the violence, trauma, moral injuries, nightmares. You describe building roads and forts, learning administration, preparing for eventual land grant and citizenship. You paint a picture of successful military career, which is technically true if success means survival. Your mother's response arrives months later. She's proud, your sisters are well, the village prospers. Everyone speaks well of the soldier who's brought honor to the family. The disconnect between her pride and your reality is profound. You've brought honor through participating in systematic imperial violence. Your success came through surviving what killed most of your peers and learning to kill efficiently. The honor she celebrates was purchased with blood and trauma. Yet you recognize both truths exist simultaneously. You are both successful soldier bringing honor to your family and traumatized instrument of imperial violence carrying permanent psychological damage. The contradiction doesn't resolve, it simply is. You've learned to hold conflicting truths without needing resolution, accepting complexity as reality's essential nature. You sit in your quarters, now 21 years old with 4 years survived of 25-year service. 21 years remain. The weight is immense but manageable. You've learned to carry it, through lessons from Sextus, through maintaining humanity deliberately, through accepting that perfect resolution doesn't exist. You'll survive the remaining years, or you won't. Either way, you'll face them with competence, humanity, and recognition that you're part of something larger than yourself, for better and worse. The Legion bugle sounds evening formation. You stand, adjusting your centurion's transverse crested helmet, and walk toward the parade ground. The path ahead is long, but you've learned to walk it. One day, one march, one decision. Until citizenship and land grant finally release you, or death releases you sooner. You've accepted both possibilities. You continue serving. The story of why ancient European armies marched silently into battle isn't about tactics alone. It's about the humans who executed those tactics, who learned through trauma to function as professional soldiers, who carried impossible burdens through 25 years of service. You're one of them now. The silence they marched in was earned through blood, trauma, and survival. You understand that silence now. You live it. And so, as another evening settles over that ancient garrison, Marcus continues his service. The young farm boy who arrived, nervous and uncertain at recruitment 4 years ago, has become something else entirely. A professional soldier, a competent commander, a survivor carrying weights most people will never understand. The silence that Roman legions marched in wasn't just tactical advantage, though it certainly was that. It was the silence of men who'd learned through blood and trauma to function as professional soldiers, who carried impossible psychological burdens through decades of service, who became efficient instruments of imperial power while fighting to maintain their humanity. Marcus's story, though fictional in its specifics, reflects countless real soldiers throughout history who faced similar transformations, carried similar burdens, made similar choices between breaking and adapting. The Roman military system that created these silent professional soldiers dominated the Mediterranean world for centuries, built on the backs of young men like Marcus, who entered service seeking opportunity and emerged traumatized but functional. Tonight,
as you rest comfortably in your modern world. Remember that the peace and order we enjoy were often built by young people carrying weights we can barely imagine, making moral compromises in impossible situations, surviving through competence and maintained humanity despite systems designed to break them. Marcus will continue his service, one day at a time, toward that distant land grant and citizenship. Whether he survives all 25 years remains uncertain, but he's learned to march in silence, carrying the weight, maintaining function, preserving some essential humanity despite everything. That's the story of ancient silent warfare. Not tactics alone, but the humans who executed them. Rest well.